All right, we are going to talk about meiosis. So meiosis. So you learned about another phase called, or another process called mitosis that happens in your normal body cells. But this is a different one. This is called meiosis. And meiosis is a type of cell division that produces four cells with half the number of chromosomes as the parent. Okay, with half the number of chromosomes of the parent. So for example, we have 46 chromosomes, half that is 23. So meiosis produces cells that only have 23 chromosomes, so not a complete set of chromosomes. And in animals, like humans, meiosis occurs in the sex organs, like the testes in males and the ovaries in females. A gamete or sex cell, okay, a gamete is what we produce in the testes and the ovaries, so sperm and egg are examples of gametes. A gamete or a sex cell is haploid cell. That means that this cell contains only one of each kind of chromosome. So you know your normal body cells have two copies of each chromosome, one from your mother and one from your father. When we go through meiosis, the gametes we make, the sperm and the egg that we make, only contain one copy of each of those chromosomes. So it either would have been the one we got from our mom or it would have been the one we got from our dad. It really depends on which cell makes it. A somatic cell, or normal body cell, so like your skin cells, your brain cells, anything that isn't a sex cell, okay, is going to be diploid. This means that it has two of each kind of chromosome. So like I said, if it's diploid, it's going to have two copies of every single chromosome, one from your mother and one from your father. And a gamete will only have one of each copy of chromosome, and so it'll either be the one from your mom or the one from your dad, depending on just complete randomness. That's why we flipped the coin when we did our genetics, when we made our babies and when we made our doohickey bugs. So, all right, an example. So if your normal body or somatic cells normally have 46 chromosomes, then the diploid number is 46. That's how many chromosomes you have in your normal body cells. But if a normal body cell has 46 chromosomes, then the gametes or sex cells will have a haploid number, which is half, haploid half, remember that. Haploid half, which would be half of 46, which is 23 chromosomes. Mitosis, this is the other one, so meiosis is the one that produces the sex cells. Mitosis results in the production of two genetically identical diploid cells. So that's the one we talked about a long time ago that we modeled and everything. And that produces two cells that are genetically identical, and they have the same number of chromosomes. Each of them have two copies of each chromosome. And it only happens in one round of divisions. Meiosis produces four genetically different haploid cells in two different stages known as first and second meiotic divisions, or meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. So here's the difference between mitosis and meiosis. In mitosis, we start with a cell that has 46 chromosomes. It is diploid, and we go through one division, and both the ending cells all have 46 chromosomes. Look, it only goes through one division. Notice how there's only one set of arrows. In meiosis, we have a diploid cell, that's what we start with, but it goes through one division, two divisions. Notice how there are two sets of arrows, and the ending thing is four haploid cells, and these are all genetically different. These guys are all genetically the same. So here is what meiosis looks like in males versus females. So in males, you'll notice we have our first division, we have our second division, and then we have four cells that will turn into sperm. So here we have four sperm cells, and that all comes from one diploid cell. So these are four haploid, remember half the number of chromosomes, sperm cells used for reproduction that came from one diploid cell after two divisions. In females, notice we have one diploid cell. Here, I'll move myself over here. Okay, we have one diploid cell. It does its first division, and then it does its second division. Notice we only get one egg, whereas males get four sperm. Women only get one egg when that division happens, and the rest of those eggs are tiny, teeny tiny, and they're called polar bodies, and they will just go ahead and die because we don't need them. Okay, the big part of what we make is these big egg cells that are apt to survive so that they can be fertilized. So these little tiny polar bodies will just be discarded. They'll be broken down and we'll recycle their parts for other divisions. So notice in males in meiosis, we get 4 cells that are haploid, and females, we get 1 cell that is haploid. The rest of the 3 will die. All right, so in words, in males, meiosis results in 4 different sperm cells that are the same size. All will be used for reproduction. In females, 4 cells are produced, 1 large egg that will be used for reproduction, and 3 smaller polar bodies that will die. So that's for you to write down. All right, so that is the overview of meiosis. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.